your life's journey?
Well, you see, I was the son of a professor at Harvard. His name was Robert McCluskey, not the man who wrote children's books, but the man who wrote books on the Supreme Court. So I was in and my mother was a kind of beginning opera singer when I was young. I was born in 1942. And so I was in a very rich environment where scholarship and books were admired. So I was a bookish kid because of my parents. And then my mother is the real, in a way, was the real intellectual in the family, because she's 96 now, and she's always been interested in ideas, in persuasion and argument, and this side and that side. Whereas my dad was sort of the expert. Not that he was a stuffy or bad man, but he was not the kind of rough and tumble intellectual I became. But I was influenced as an adolescent, say 15 or 16, by folk singing, which I started to do. And of course, that's from the left, so Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and Joan Baez and so on were all people of the left. And I was too. I was a typical upper middle class kid who suddenly realizes there are poor people in the world, and reckons that the way to help them is to open Daddy's wallet. And so those were great influences on me, those sort of loosely left-wing thinking. And then when I got to college, early in college, we had to read a lot of Marx, and I came to think of myself as a Marxist. Actually, my first influence was anarchism, Prince Kropotkin of Russia, whom I discovered as I discovered the other left-wing classics in the Carnegie Finance Library in Wakefield, Massachusetts, when I was a kid. So as I entered college, I was a socialist, but then, having switched my major to economics from history, I started to learn Keynesian economics and became a Keynesian, which is a much more moderate position. It's not overthrowing capitalism, but it's perfecting capitalism by introducing a good deal of socialism. So I was kind of a quasi-socialist. And then as I proceeded, I had an engineering roommate and learned a kind of engineering attitude towards the world from him. Problem solving, mathematics, quantities. So I became kind of a social engineer. So by the end of college. And then I went to graduate school at Harvard too, Harvard University. And then gradually saw the applicability of economics to history. I had a great mentor, Alex Gerschenkron, a famous economic historian. And so I drifted more and more towards the view that economics was usable, applicable. And finally, I came to the conclusion that the economy worked pretty well for poor people. In fact, extraordinarily well. Contrary to the kind of let's go down and join the union attitude of my youth.